The wallet hits the counter. Hard. Bills scatter like broken promises. On the other side of the glass, a little girl lies still. Her chest rises slow, shallow. Machines beep steady, then falter. Every sound in the room sharpens into terror. The nurse hesitates, eyes darting from the cash to the child. And then, shoes strike the floor. A man storms in, suit pressed, face twisted with rage. He points. "That's my money. Call security." The room freezes. Whispers ripple. The father doesn't flinch. One hand clutches the counter. Knuckles white, his jaw tightens. His voice, cracked but steady, cuts through the silence. "Save her first." The nurse swallows hard. The CEO's face darkens. Behind the glass, the girl's monitor screams beep, 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 slowing, and in that hallway, time itself seemed to hold its breath. What happened next would silence the entire hospital. But listen closely. This isn't just his story. It's ours. Because right now in America, over 30 million families are drowning under medical bills. Emergency care can drain thousands in hours. A single night in the ICU costs more than most people earn in months. And when life or death hangs on a price tag, who among us wouldn't break the rules to save the ones we love? If you've ever worried about how you'd pay for an emergency, hit subscribe right now. Don't wait. Because the truth is, one day it could be you. You, standing at that glass window, you with your child on the other side, and you praying someone listens before it's too late. So stay with me, because what that CEO did next is something you will never forget. New York. Morning rush, street noise thick, horns, sirens, subway hum, people move fast, coffee in hand, phones to ear, deals before breakfast. A black Cadillac cuts through traffic, smooth, expensive, untouchable. It pulls up outside a glass tower near Wall Street. Door opens. Out steps Richard Whitmore, CEO. Billionaire hedge fund boss. Suit cut to perfection. Shoes polished to shine. Wrist heavy with a watch worth more than most cars in the Bronx. He doesn't look around. He doesn't have to. This is his world. Money, power, control. Behind him, another door. Marcus Reed, the driver. Black man, 42, father. South Bronx. He moves quiet, head slightly down. His vest is wrinkled, shirt collar torn, hands callous from more than driving. He grabs the handle, opens the door. No words. Just routine. Every morning, the same. Inside the Cadillac, different universe. Soft leather, champagne flutes set in holders, a briefcase with contracts stacked inside, deals worth millions. Deals spoken in a language Marcus was never invited to understand. Richard climbs back in, phone already to his ear. His voice cuts the air, sharp, clipped. "Move the assets, not tomorrow, today. Millions don't wait." He laughs once, cold, empty. "This is why I run this city, because I don't sleep." Money never sleeps. Marcus drives. Hands steady on the wheel, eyes forward, mouth closed. But his phone buzzes in his pocket. A text from the hospital. Balance due. Immediate action required. He doesn't open it. He doesn't need to. He already knows what it says. He already knows the number. Too high. Always too high. Richard leans back, mutters loud enough for Marcus to hear. Unbelievable. Another charity request. Hospitals begging for donations again. He scoffs. What a waste. If people can't pay, they should have planned better. Marcus tightens his grip on the wheel, says nothing. Richard keeps going. Healthcare is a business, not a gift. If you can't afford it, you lose. Simple. The words sit heavy. Marcus remembers the monitor. Beep, beep. His daughter's chest rising slow, her hand weak in his. Doctor's voice low. Without immediate payment, we stop treatment. Richard shifts forward, voice sharp. You hear me, Marcus? This city's full of people like that. Always crying poor, always reaching out, always wanting something for nothing. Marcus breathes deep, still driving, still silent. Richard smirks. You agree with me, don't you? Marcus meets his eyes in the rearview mirror. Voice low, measured. Not everyone asks because they want a handout. The car goes quiet. Only the hum of traffic. Only the sound of a city rushing on. Richard scoffs, shakes his head. Spare me. Sob stories don't change numbers. Drive. Outside, Times Square flashes. Screens glow, tourists snap pictures. Cabs fight lanes. Life in motion. Inside, two men sit in silence. One with more money than he could ever spend. One with less time than money could buy. Because in the front seat sits a father. And in the back of his mind, a hospital bill ticks, like a time bomb. And when that clock hits zero, The fallout won't just shake one family, it will shake the entire room. Marcus was more than the wheel he held. He carried the name of a father known in hospital corridors. Marcus, the night nurse would whisper, she's stable for now. Marcus, the doctor sighed, we need the payment today. No last name needed. Everyone there knew him. At work, he was invisible. Richard never called him Marcus, never called him anything, only orders. Door, car, wait. Richard Whitmore had a different face for a different crowd. At business lunches, his laugh shook the room. Gentlemen, I'll cover the next round. Celebrate the win. Back slaps, handshakes, fake warmth. He had the kind of charm that filled charity galas in Midtown. Cameras loved him. Magazines called him a leader, a savior, a king of Wall Street. But charm costs nothing when you don't spend it on those beneath you. When Marcus stood by the curb, Richard looked past him, like a shadow, like a prop in the background of his life. Loyalty, Richard told a partner. Voice rich with pride, that's what keeps empires alive. Loyalty to the money, to the people who matter. The partner nodded. You've always had it, Richard. Always. Marcus shut the door, said nothing, but he thought of loyalty too. A daughter asleep under hospital lights. Breath thin, hope thinner. 2 men in one car, one chasing loyalty to wealth, the other bound only by blood. And soon the world would see which loyalty carried more weight. The ride through Midtown slowed. Traffic thick, horns constant, pedestrians rushing between yellow cabs. Inside the Cadillac, the leather seats stayed warm. Richard scrolled through his phone, muttering, "Healthcare's a scam, pure scam." His tone was sharp, like he'd said it before. He leaned back, waving one hand. Billions pumped into hospitals, still people whining they can't afford a checkup. Pathetic. He shook his head, lips curling. If people can't pay, that's on them. Nobody forced them to get sick. Nobody forced them to have kids. Marcus gripped the wheel tighter. Eyes on the light turning green. No answer. Richard didn't stop. You know how much I pay in premiums? A fortune. That's the game. You pay to play. You don't pay, you lose. A paper slipped from his folder, fluttered to the floor. Marcus saw the edge of a picture, bright, colorful. Richard picked it up, read it once, and scoffed. Hospital fundraiser. Another charity stunt. They're always begging, always crying broke. Disgusting. He tossed it down by his shoe. It lay there, a smiling child on the front. Bold letters, Children's Hospital Fundraiser. Marcus waited. When the car slowed at the next red, he leaned down. Quiet, deliberate. He picked it up, folded it carefully, slipped it into his pocket. Richard's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. You don't actually buy into this garbage, do you? Marcus's voice came low. Those kids didn't ask for it. Richard laughed. Harsh. Spoken like someone who doesn't understand business. This is America. You get what you earn. If they can't pay, that's not my problem. I've earned every dollar. The Cadillac pulled to a stop outside a glass-front restaurant. Tall windows, polished steel handles, lights warm inside. Men in heavy coats stood by the entrance, checking watches, smiling when they saw Richard. Richard fixed his cufflinks, leaned forward. Park across the street. Keep the engine running. Marcus nodded once. Do you want me to come in later? Richard shook his head, smirking. No, stay outside. I don't need you standing behind me while I talk business. The door opened. Cold air rushed in. Richard stepped out, face already changed. Smile wide, voice booming. Harold, good to see you. How's Martha? How's the Hamptons house? His hand slapped into Harold's with loud affection. Laughter rang. Warmth staged. The door shut behind him. Marcus sat for a moment. He glanced at the folded flyer in his pocket, the child on the cover staring back at him. He thought of his daughter's pale face, the IV taped to her arm. He opened his own door. The cold hit immediately. January wind cut straight through his vest. He zipped it to the top, but it didn't help much. Across the street, Richard's voice carried through the glass, muffled but clear enough. Laughter. Silverware. Toasts. The sound of plates clattering with food Marcus hadn't tasted in years. On the sidewalk, people passed. Men in wool coats, women in fur collars, tourists snapping photos of the glowing restaurant sign. Nobody looked at him. A chauffeur in a wrinkled vest wasn't worth a glance. A couple paused nearby, waiting for a cab. The man looked at Marcus, then looked away. muttered low. Looks like he's invisible. Invisible. As if the cold wind, the empty stomach, the daughter lying in a hospital bed didn't exist. Minutes dragged. 1 became 10. 10 became 30. Marcus's fingers numbed against the steering wheel. Inside the restaurant, the warmth never broke. He crossed his arms, rocked on his heels. A delivery bike rattled past, rider muttering, "Cold night, huh?" Marcus nodded, barely audible. "Yeah." The light from the restaurant painted the sidewalk gold. On the other side of the glass, Richard raised a glass of wine that cost more than Marcus made in a week. "Gentlemen," his voice carried, "to loyalty, to money, to the future." Applause followed. Marcus looked away. Down the block, a man dug through a trash can, pulled out half a sandwich, stuffed it into his mouth. New York was full of hunger. Marcus knew the feeling too well. He touched the flyer in his pocket again, ran his fingers over the folded edge. He pictured his daughter's hand, smaller, weaker, reaching for him through tubes and wires. Richard's laughter spilled out again, loud, unchecked, the kind of laugh that filled rooms and drowned out everything else. But outside, on that curb, Marcus stood alone, silent, invisible. Invisible until the moment he reached for the money. The phone buzzed in Marcus's pocket. He pulled it out, slow, careful. The number glowed across the screen. The hospital. He answered quick, voice tight. "Hello?" On the other end, the nurse's words were firm. "Mr. Reed, we need the payment tonight. If it doesn't come through, we stop treatment." Marcus closed his eyes for a second. He swallowed, throat dry. "I'm trying. Please, just a little more time." The line stayed cold. "I'm sorry. We can't run machines for free." The call ended. His hand dropped, his chest heavy. Every sound in the car seemed louder, the ticking turn signal, the hum of the engine, Richard's voice filling the space behind him. Richard was on another call, pacing his words like a king counting coins. "Move the trades. I don't care if it's risky. Billions are at stake. Do it." Marcus's eyes drifted back. There it was, the briefcase. Black leather, wide enough to hold everything he needed, enough to buy hours of life. His breathing grew sharp. One glance too long, 1 second too honest. Richard caught it. Their eyes met in the rear view. His voice dropped. "Dangerous. Don't even think about it. Guys like you don't get second chances." Silence sat heavy between them. Marcus gripped the wheel. Knuckles white. He didn't answer. Richard leaned back, smirking, phone already ringing again. "Yeah, it's me. Close the deal. No excuses." The call kept him busy. Marcus's hands trembled at his sides. Every word from the nurse replayed in his head. "If you don't pay tonight, we stop treatment." He pictured his daughter's face, the pale skin, the slow rise of her chest, the machines waiting for money before they gave her another breath. Richard's voice rose. "Unacceptable. I said billions. I don't care who you have to fire, fix it." That was the moment. Marcus moved, quick, silent. His hand closed around the briefcase. The weight heavy, real. His heart pounded in his throat. Richard turned fast, saw the case in Marcus's grip. His voice exploded. "Thief!" The word cut through the car like glass shattering. Heads turned on the sidewalk. People stopped mid-step. A man in a suit yelling, fingers stabbing the air. And a driver, holding the one thing not meant for him. Richard's face burned red. "You think you can steal from me? From me?" He slammed his hand against the seat. "You're finished. I'll ruin you." Marcus didn't argue, didn't beg. He only clutched the case tighter, because the money wasn't headed to him. It was already spoken for, already owed to the machines keeping his daughter alive. But what Richard didn't know was where that money was already headed. If this moment hits you in the gut, don't wait. Subscribe now, because one day you might pray someone tells your story when the system turns its back on you. Marcus's shoes pounded against the tile. The hospital doors flew open. He didn't stop at the front desk. He didn't stop at the sign-in window. He went straight for the counter where the doctors stood. The briefcase hit hard. Money spilled out, stacks sliding across the desk. "Take it," his voice cracked. "Just save her." The doctor froze for a second. His eyes went from the money to Marcus's face, to the desperation in his voice. Then, another voice, louder, sharper. Richard stormed through the doors, chest heaving, fingers stabbing the air. "That's my money. Arrest him, right now." Heads turned in the waiting area. Mothers holding children. An old man in a wheelchair. Nurses pushing carts. Everyone looking now. Richard shoved past a nurse, nearly knocking her clipboard to the ground. This man's a criminal. He jabbed his finger toward Marcus again. I want him in handcuffs. Marcus didn't move, didn't argue. He only pressed his hand to the counter, voice hoarse. Save her first, please. Every second counts. The doctor reached for the chart behind him. He looked down at the money again, then at Richard's furious face. Finally back to Marcus, his voice came steady. If not for this money, she wouldn't make it through the night. The room fell silent. The words carried across the waiting room, heavy. Every eye locked on Richard. Whispers started. That's Whitmore, the billionaire. Wait, he tried to stop a kid's surgery? You're kidding. Phones came up. Screens lit, cameras focused. A dozen little red dots recording every second. Richard's face went darker. He spun on the crowd. Put those down. This isn't your business. A mother in the corner hugged her child closer, her voice sharp, cutting through. You tried to stop her surgery? The whispers grew louder, heartless, disgusting. That poor girl. Richard raised his hands, trying to wave them off. You don't understand. That's my property. He stole from me. The doctor didn't budge, his tone firm. That property just paid for a child's life. Marcus's eyes dropped to the floor. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He only whispered under his breath, "Thank you." The crowd pressed closer. Some shook their heads. Others filmed every angle, every word, every gesture. Richard's voice cracked with fury. This isn't over. He'll pay for this. But in that moment, no one looked at Marcus as a thief. They saw a father, a man who put everything on the line for his child. What the CEO did next shocked everyone watching. Richard lunged forward. His hand shot across the counter, grabbing at the cash. Mine, he shouted. This is mine. A guard reacted quick. Step back, sir. He caught Richard's wrist, pulling him away from the pile of bills. Richard twisted, face red, suit rumpled now. You don't get it. That man stole from me. He jabbed a finger at Marcus. He's nothing. He's a criminal. The guard held steady. Sir, calm yourself. But the whispers had already started. That's Whitmore, the billionaire. The guy from the papers. Nurses leaned toward one another, shaking their heads. One said it louder. The billionaire who tried to stop a girl's surgery? That line carried, like sparks on dry grass. It spread through the waiting room. People turned, eyes narrowed. Phones rose higher. Some started streaming live. Richard spun, wild-eyed. Stop recording me. You have no idea what's happening here. But every camera caught his rage. Every microphone picked up his words. This money is mine. A man holding his little boy whispered, not soft enough to be ignored. You got billions, and you're fighting over bills that might save a kid's life? A woman in scrubs shook her head. This is disgusting. The crowd shifted. Murmurs turned into open voices. Heartless. Shameful. What kind of man does this? Richard's jaw tightened. I've donated more than any of you will make in your lives. He raised his arms as though the room would clap for him. No one clapped. They booed. Soft at first, then louder. Booing that filled the lobby and bounced off the sterile white walls. Richard pointed wildly. You're fools. You don't understand business. This man stole from me. You don't side with thieves. But all eyes shifted to Marcus, still, silent, hand pressed flat to the glass of the ICU room. His daughter inside, chest rising faint beneath the oxygen mask. The machines doing their work. Every second a reminder of why he'd taken that case of money. Richard's shouting grew desperate. You'll regret this, every last one of you. The guard moved closer. Sir, you need to lower your voice or leave the building. Richard shoved the guard's arm. I won't leave until he's in cuffs. And that was when a mother's voice cut through the noise. She stood near the back, her daughter leaning against her hip. Let him be a father. The words hit hard. They echoed across the room. Another voice joined. Yes, let him be a father. Applause followed. Hands clapping. Some clapped for Marcus. Some clapped for the words themselves. But no one clapped for Richard. He turned, spinning in the noise. Phones everywhere. Flashes like lightning. His face caught at every angle. The man who smiled at charity galas. The man who stood in magazines as a philanthropist. now caught in a hospital lobby fighting to stop a dying child's surgery. And Marcus? He didn't move. Didn't turn to the crowd, didn't raise his voice. He just whispered against the glass, forehead resting lightly. "Hold on, baby, I'm right here." But the real twist wasn't about money, it was about mercy. The night was long. Machines hummed steady in the ICU. Nurses checked vitals, adjusted drips. Marcus never left the glass. Every hour felt like a year. Then, as dawn cracked through the blinds, the doctor stepped out. His voice was low but sure. "She made it through." He placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "She's stronger than you think." Marcus's chest shook. Not from words he'd heard thousands over weeks, but from the one thing he hadn't felt in days: relief. He pressed his forehead against the glass once more. "Thank you, God. Thank you." But outside that hospital, another story was spreading, faster than Richard Whitmore could contain it. The first video went viral before midnight. The caption read, "Billionaire tries to stop surgery for a little girl." By morning, it was everywhere. On Twitter feeds, on TikTok clips, on local news stations replaying the crowd's boos. Headlines cut sharp: Whitmore's fortune, Whitmore's shame, billionaire tried to block life-saving surgery. Board members called emergency meetings, stock tickers shifted, investors distanced themselves fast. Because on Wall Street, nothing burns faster than bad press. At noon, the statement went public. Richard Whitmore has stepped down as CEO effective immediately. No applause this time, no charity gala claps, only silence. Neighbors in the Bronx heard too. Not from news alerts, but from whispers on the block. "That's Marcus. His daughter pulled through." "You hear what he did? He stood against a billionaire, and he won." Kids in the hallway nodded at him, different now. Mothers smiled longer. The same man who once drove unnoticed through the city was no longer invisible. Not because of money, but because of love strong enough to risk everything. Marcus went back to work. Same car, same city. Still poor. Still counting dollars before bills. But when people saw him now, they didn't just see a driver. They saw a father who fought the system and refused to fold. And behind every glance, every nod, every whispered, "That's him," was the truth. That the man who once had no voice now carried the weight of millions behind him. And the man who once had no voice suddenly carried the weight of millions behind him. Don't scroll past, because tomorrow it might not be Marcus. It might be you. Subscribe now so stories like this never get buried. How many parents out there would do the same? Would you? If it was your child behind that glass, machines keeping her alive, the bill climbing higher by the hour, would you take the risk? Would you steal if it meant saving your kid's life? Think about it. This isn't some far-off story. In America right now, over 100 million people carry medical debt. Emergency rooms don't wait for your next paycheck. Hospitals don't keep machines running out of kindness. They stop treatment when the balance isn't paid. That's not fiction. That's fact. So I'm asking you, drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear from mothers in Detroit, fathers in Atlanta, students in Chicago, grandparents in Houston. What would you do if it was your family? Would you risk everything for one more breath, one more heartbeat? And don't just watch and move on. Because while you're here, out there right now, another Marcus is standing at a hospital counter. Another father is begging a nurse for more time. Another child is lying under bright lights, waiting for a machine that may shut off when the money runs out. If this story hit you, don't scroll. Don't shake your head and keep moving. Share it. Because stories like this shouldn't get buried. They should echo. They should haunt every boardroom and every charity gala until something changes. If you've ever been scared of that phone call from the hospital, if you've ever looked at a bill and wondered how you'll make it through, hit subscribe right now. Don't wait, because tomorrow it might not be Marcus. It might be you. And the only thing standing between your child and silence might be the courage to act. So comment, share, subscribe, and let the world know every parent deserves the chance to fight for their child.